Hi everyone, so today I'm going to show you how to work with the pegs and ties in WikiHouse Skylark 250. The main reason is because if you want to start actually building with WikiHouse in real life, you need to understand how everything actually joins together into one big assembly. In the past 2 months, I've been working mostly with the simple design kit, and that definitely is eventually easier to build with. But I knew that one thing was still missing, and that were the pegs and ties. These are all the red bits that you see the in the SketchUp here. So what I'll do today is show you the importance of the pegs and ties and how you work with them in SketchUp. So the main reason why you will run into them is when you switch from using the simple design kit to the detailed design kit. So again, if you go to WikiHouse website, you can download the simple design kit or the detailed one. And the main difference really is that, first of all, the simple design is just lighter to use because the models itself are less detailed. So it's easier to load within SketchUp. You can build quickly, and it's a good way to learn how the blocks go together to form your house, as I've shown in previous videos. But if you start using the detailed design kit because you want to use a more precise model of your building, then you'll start to run into the pegs and the ties as well. And moving to the detailed design is really quite helpful to really understand manufacturing of WikiHouse blocks, but also how to connect the blocks into a larger assembly. And really the reason why I also found out about this and learned more about this is if you go to the engineering guide, and again, I'm not a structural engineer, but I do try to understand a little bit more about how WikiHouse blocks work together, because the goal is eventually to start building with WikiHouse in real life ourselves. So I need to understand, if I'm going to build my own home, how does everything connect. And when you go to the structural engineering guide, again, under connections, it talks about bow ties and pegs. So if you click on bow ties, what it will show you, apparently this doesn't load to the correct site. Under bow ties, it shows you it's one of the main connectors, and they are put into the face of the chassis to connect pieces together to form a larger assembly. And similarly with the pegs, if you go to them, again, the link here doesn't work correctly. It's one of the main connectors, and they hold blocks in place, preventing uplift. So they really are quite important. But if you only work with a simple design kit, you won't really run into them. So what I'll do is, again, I'm using SketchUp free in the web browser, so everyone can work with this and start building with it. And I'll show you how to use the pegs and the ties. So the first thing, if you start building with a detailed design kit, and I have loaded the detailed design kit as downloaded from the WikiHouse website in SketchUp here, the first thing you'll notice is actually the details in the blocks. And I've put an example here. So the bottom one is the end floor, the medium-sized end floor from the detailed design kit, and the top one is the simple version of it. So the main thing that jumps out immediately is, of course, these cutouts here, and this is where your bow ties will go in. As I've shown here already, I've put one in here just to show the difference between them. So these cutouts, that's where your bow ties will go in. And why this is helpful to see is, well, actually, when you go to the different the blocks on the WikiHouse website, for each of them, so for the end M block, as I've shown you in the SketchUp, you have an assembly manual. And this is what you would obviously do on site when you're actually building, but it's helpful to have a look at just to understand how the blocks are developed, because as you will probably know by now, WikiHouse is developed to be designed using plywood, and you use a CNC cutter to create all the individual pieces, and then you need to assemble it on site. So you can see that actually from the assembly guide for the end block, that it's 3 different blocks that you are putting together. You see here, so these are 3 different blocks that you're putting together, and so you will need to connect them somehow. And of course you can do this with the combs, and you should do this with the combs that fall in between these gaps here. But also, to keep that block together, you're going to need to use these ties. So the combs go in here, and then in addition you'll need to put them together with the ties. The other quick thing just to note on the detailed blocks is it's easier to see what the outside and the inside is of the end block. So where you have these half moons, that's the outside of your end block. And so if you move it to the other side of your house, you need to turn it 180 degrees. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you in terms of the details of the details of the detailed design kit and the blocks, and how that helps you understand the manufacturing of WikiHouse blocks and how to connect pieces. So if we go to this model here that I created, as you can see, the combs go first. These are the purple ones, the combs, and then you got the end block that goes on top, and these are connected with the ties here, the red ones over here. Now, the first thing with the ties is that you use the ties to connect the full floor, and also eventually to connect the full wall as well. I have not created a full wall because otherwise it would be quite difficult to show you the floor. But as you can see with the floor is being connected not just by the combs over here where where the outside of the house is being held together, but also the inside of the floor. So you use one full tie, and you can see here if I select this and I go to the entity info, it's the tie component for WikiHouse that you use one full tie to connect two of the floor beams together. And when you import the design kit as downloaded from the WikiHouse website, if you go all the way to the end, this is where you will find the components. So you have the full tie here, a half tie, which I'll come on to shortly, and the pegs as well. And I'll show you that in a second. So that's where they are. And as I said, you use the full tie to connect two of the floor beams, and then eventually you have your whole floor all together into one assembled floor piece. And similarly in the walls, so as I said, I've only created a small piece of the wall just to show you. And what you'll show here is that you have two pieces of wall here. You have the corner post and you have a window. And so I've used, again, a tie here to connect the two together. But you also have some wall pieces like this window and the door where there's a hole. But it's still important to connect these two wall pieces together, and that is where you use the half tie. So this is a half tie. There you go, a half tie as a component. And one thing to note is when you put in the ties is that you have to put them in correctly, because they fall into the blocks of WikiHouse. So if I move this one, you will see what I mean. As you can see here, this piece, the half tie piece, needs to fall into the wall block over here. As you can see on the other side as well, it all needs to fall in neatly. So it moves around. So if I do not fit them in correctly, that means that if I flip this, if I don't put them in correctly, then what you will see is that they stick out. So if you see here, if I fit them incorrectly, they don't fall in neatly into the wall, and so that won't give you any structure and no strength either. So you do need to make sure that you fit them in correctly, and it's the same with the floor pieces as well. So I'm just going to go back a couple of times here. So this one fits in nicely, and you will see it with the floor as well, is that with the detailed design blocks, you will see this. If I remove this tie, you will see that it is a cutout. So you need to make sure, again, there's that the cutout here, that it fits in neatly. So if you would flip it, and if you would put it in upside down, it doesn't, it doesn't fit in correctly. You do need to make sure of that. Now, when you're designing with WikiHouse and you're just building and you're just practicing with, what do I want my house to look like, I really would just use the simple design kit. But I'm showing you this because eventually, if you are serious about building with WikiHouse, you'll need to understand how to join these pieces together. So this is how you connect the walls and the floors into one large piece. The final thing to show you, and this really is quite important, is in addition to the ties, you have the pegs, and the pegs are the red pieces over here. So if I show you here, the entity info, these are the pegs. What you'll need to do is you need to align two of the pegs right next to each other, and they fit through the bottom and also the top of each of your walls. I didn't put them in here because I don't have a ceiling yet, and I didn't put in any comps, so that's why I didn't put them in here. But at the bottom you will see. So what you need to do is you need to put them through each of these holes to make sure that you actually connect your walls with your floor. And I've put them in here through the combs to show you what is happening on the inside here. So because if you put these pegs in, what will happen on the inside is they will also connect through the combs, and in that way your wall connects to the floor by having the combs connected through the floor into the wall, and then also to have these pegs sideways connected through the wall and through the combs. And I can show you this all over here. If you look inside of the wall piece here, you can see this is where the pegs fall through, and they go through the comb, and then they fit in here nicely. Now, one thing to note with the pegs is, first of all, you need to align two of them next to one another, and it is really, really tight. It's a really tight fit. So I imagine that when you're building with WikiHouse on site in real life, you'll probably need to use a wooden hammer to actually um, make them fit in and make them fit tightly. But what you'll notice is that one side is curved and the other side is completely straight. So because it's such a tight fit, you will need to use the curved side first. So you can put them in through either from the inside of your house through to the outside, or the other way around. So you fit them in through for this side, and I've done it two ways here. So on this side with the comb, I've just shown you if you would put in the pegs from the inside of your house towards the outside, then your curved side is here, or the other way around, and then you have a flat side here. Now, to be honest with you, I do not know what the correct way is. There's nothing in the design guide at the moment, to my knowledge, or the assembly guide to my knowledge, that explains where you need to put the pegs in, from the outside to the inside or from the inside to the outside. But one thing is sure, you do need to use whatever way you start from. Start with the curved side first, because otherwise it won't fit through. So that is all for the pegs and the ties. And just to show you, if you find it easier to just read through this and have this all guide by step by step in photos, have a look at my GitHub website, and in my practice files, in my SketchUp practice, what I've done is I've uploaded the pegs and tie practice. So over here you will see detailed step by step what I have just shown you as well, and just details there and just written, so you can follow it step by step, and you can download the SketchUp practice file that I just showed you. And finally, just to say, I would recommend to really have a look at these guides from the WikiHouse team, because they are really helpful when you are designing your house and really trying to understand what kind of house you can build with WikiHouse and what you will need to consider. So please do look on the website and on the guidance there. Again, I do not work for WikiHouse, but they are an incredibly helpful team. So a big thank you to WikiHouse, and thank you everyone, and I'll see you next time.